You'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets year for all your Mets here. Let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home.
Let's go. Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the M-E-T-S Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets. Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets. All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets Hit Rob with a Mets Trade Deadline special preview right here on the channel. Remember, guys, don't forget to please hit on that like button. And, of course, as well, if you are a new subscriber of the channel, say what's up. Do not be shy. I do not care if you're a Mets fan or not. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of shock and awe from many fan bases around Major League Baseball. Some are sellers, some are buyers, some are fire sale, some are in between, some not knowing what they're going to be yet. Someone like the New York Yankees as well. But this is the Mets Trade Deadline special right here on the channel, guys. So there is a lot to talk about when it comes to the New York Mets alone. And listen, no matter what you want to believe, no matter what you wanted to think if this team was in it or not, I said, as I always said, and I said this many times on the stream, you can go back and look at it if you want to, fact check me on this. I always believe if you're within 3 games of a playoff spot, doesn't matter if it's division, wild card, whatever. If you're within 3 games of a wild card spot by the deadline, and I mean the day of the deadline, which the Mets will clearly not be. The best they can do is 6 games, and that is dependent on who loses in front of them today, or they can be within 7 games because the Mets do not play today as they go to Kansas City to face the Royals. So with the New York Mets, guys, you got to understand the fact that now in my case, I think 3 games is the cutoff point, and then you can decide what you want to do. Again, I was never not a person to say I would be a buyer, I would be a seller, I would stay pat. I always believe if you're within 3 games of a playoff spot, you can be buyers if you want, depending on what you think you really need. And his team needed bullpen, as we all know. The rotation, you seem like he was coming into form somewhat. Again, either Scherzer has been very inconsistent the entire year. Even, he pitched really well at Citi Field against the Dodgers to salvage a series for the Mets not to get swept. And then his next start in Boston, he was throwing bad in practice when he said through the media that he fixed his slider. Yet 5 home runs given up in that Red Sox game were all on the slider. So I don't want to hear anybody saying, oh, it's a bad move, it's stupid, it doesn't make sense. Listen, guys, if you don't think the New York Mets organizationally got better over these last two trades, you are mistaken. Either you didn't do your homework or you just don't want to believe that this year was actually over. And I was saying it for a while. The Mets had opportunities when they had that 15-game stretch before the All-Star break when they faced teams that were in front of them. They didn't do that job, right? They played okay at best, right? What are they, 14-9 in July? Wonderful. 5 games over 500. Probably not going to cut it, clearly, right? So I said right before the deadline, this was right before this on Monday, right before the Yankee series, the Mets have to go 5-1 or 6-0 between the Yankees 2-game series and the 4-game series against the Nationals. Well, they went 4-2. Now, that might have been good if the Mets actually had a competent June, but it's not. It wasn't good enough. 5-1 probably would have got you to 5.5 games from the wild card spot, which is borderline organizationally to be buyers or sellers, right? This is not a fire sale. Max Scherzer, for a lot of people who were in this chat, in this stream for many, many weeks and probably a few months, were saying Max Scherzer's washed. $43 million for this garbage. Well, you just got a top overall prospect who is now number 2 in your system in Luis Angel Acuna for Max Scherzer, who has a 4 ERA, who has not pitched well in a big game probably since June of last year. Not even June, probably in May. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about keeping Scherzer just for the fake hope of going on a run, if that's possible? And even if this, for months now, people are like, oh, this team is not good enough. This team is not the same. This team is doesn't have that same feeling. So why are the same people that were saying that for the last couple of months now complaining that the Mets are getting rid of guys that are clearly not going to help this team this year and probably not next year? David Robinson, you could sign next year if you really want him back in the offseason. He said he loved it here. Well, the Mets got back a helium-level prospect in Marco Vargas, who all indications, all reports, or scouts are saying, not just Met scouts, all around the league are saying this kid, even at 18 years old, is a helium prospect. What does that mean if you don't know what that means? That means that he can run through the farm system very quickly. So by 20 years old, which is about a year away because he's going to be turning 19 very soon. So by 20 years old, he can be in your AA system and be a candidate of coming up, because AA seems to be the way most teams look at potential guys that can be coming up on this major league roster. And this is not saying that this is going to happen. We don't know. No prospect, and this is the reason why when I say no prospect is a guarantee, is why the Mets should have went for it last year when you were actually in first place, when you were actually a really good team, when you were the top 3 in baseball. That's when you should have went for it, right? Don't make the same mistake the Mets made in 2019 by acquiring Stroman when the Mets in 2019 had to go on an insane run just to get back into a race, and then September was basically playing out the string. All right? You can't make that same mistake they did in 2019 when they had one of the better pitchers in baseball who could have been the biggest trade piece in baseball at the time in Zach Wheeler. No, they wanted to keep him. Everybody knew the Wilpons were not going to sign Zach Wheeler, and they didn't even make an offer. Everybody knew it, except for the Mets, except for Brody Van Wagenen. You have to make a tough decision. You have to make the tough choices. And It's not like the Mets are trading Alonso and Nimmo here, guys. All right? And even Justin Verlander, I think, is probably 60-40 he's staying with the Mets. The only way I think the Mets are going to trade Justin Verlander if they get an offer they can't refuse. And right now, you hear the Astros, you hear the Dodgers, who have very good farm systems, along with other teams who are calling on Justin Verlander. You do not look. Max Scherzer got back a number 3 ranked prospect in the Rangers system. The Rangers system is very, very highly regarded. And on top of that, he is the 44th ranked prospect in MLB's top 100 and number 2 in the Mets system now, just based on that. If you can get that for Max Scherzer, just imagine what you can get with a pitcher who is actually pitching well this year, and his last 11 starts has under a 2 ERA. I think it's like 1.6 ERA in his last 11 starts. You can get a king's ransom for him, and that's the only way you trade Max Scherzer. If you can get 3 prospects in the top 20, 2 in the top 10, and one of those is a top-rated pitching prospect that could be up right away or at least next year coming out of the spring training, that's what you have to look at. Because make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, there is no guarantee, and this is the problem with people who are prospect huggers. Last year was the year to make moves, right? You see teams like the Rangers. You see teams like the Braves. You see teams all over baseball, Baltimore, teams like that are finally like the Rangers, for an example, are very similar to the Mets. The Rangers are a team that have been bad, haven't been really good, right? You finally have a really good team like the Mets did last year, and you get Vogelback, Nate Quinn, Ruff, and Givens. That was the moves the Mets made when they could have stopped being so much of the prospect huggers and put more people, more prospects available to other teams to get back better players. Now, that doesn't mean that you had to trade Francisco Alvarez for a big bat. You know what? A lot of people wanted JD Martinez. I wasn't really on board with that, but I guarantee you could have got him if you would have said, hey, would you want Alex Ramirez? Do you want Ronnie Mauricio? Because last time I checked, where are these? Alex Ramirez is coming up the system rather quickly, right? He's in Brooklyn right now, raking right now. Ronnie Mauricio, how many years have we been hearing about them? I've always said Ronnie Mauricio was always going to be a trade piece for the New York Mets. For a situation like last year, they didn't want to do that. Remember, Billy Epler, who everybody can't stand, said to you after the trade deadline last year, I'm very excited. I'm very happy that we kept our top 25 prospects. That was his words. Now, coming this year, people are saying, oh, they're old. Oh, they're not a really good team. They don't look like the same player, the same team. They don't have that same fire. Okay, so if they're old, don't have the same fire, they're the same team that broke down last year in September, then why are you concerned of trading pieces that aren't helping you this year, even though as good as Robertson has been, still kept you 7 games on the 500, not Robertson's fault, but as good as he was, we were still 6, 7, 8 games back when we traded him. And then Max Scherzer, who hasn't pitched anytime you needed him, seemed like he failed every big game he needed. We needed to win that series against the Red Sox. That was Saturday in the nightcap where we needed him to win that game. Maybe if the Mets win that game and win that series and going into Sunday's game ready to sweep the Red Sox, maybe it would have been a different story going into that Yankee series and not really having to take 2 games from the Yankees. We could have split, and it would have been a little bit better going into that. And then you could have looked at 3 out of 4 against the Nationals. But because we lost that series against the Red Sox, I really believe really turned heads in the front office and said, listen, this is not happening, all right? Every time we think we're out of it, we come out of it, we take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. You can't win that way. And Scherzer, if people weren't paying attention, and then people are bringing up stats, oh, he was 22-9. Oh, the analytical people who never care about wins and losses are now caring about wins and losses because it fits your narrative. Stop it. Max Scherzer has not been good for this New York Mets team ever since he got hurt with that oblique injury. He has not been the same player. Do we forget about the Atlanta Braves series at the end of the year last year? Oh, we don't want to talk about that now, right? When I brought up a month ago, this is the same team that won 101 games last year. Don't talk about the past. It doesn't matter. But now people are going to bitch and moan about Scherzer. Oh, look at his win record all of a sudden. All of a sudden. Come on, guys. Don't be that person. And I'm always on board for going for it. But did this team give you any sign that they were ever going to come out of this malaise they've been in all season? Right? They had their opportunity 2 times, 15 games before the deadline, when they had to go on a nice stretch. They didn't. 6 games before the deadline, they needed to go 5-1 or 6-0 to have any hope of trying to get within 3 or 4 games of a playoff spot. They did not do that. They went 4-2, which they couldn't have done. It is what it is, guys. Boo-hoo for us. But you know what? Reality has to set in at some point that this team wasn't going to do anything this year. And it kills me as a diehard Mets fan who's a season ticket holder who now has 2 months of a season that can't get rid of Mets tickets if I gave them away for free at this point now. I would love to be going to games in August and September knowing that this team has a shot. A big shot of doing something. It sucks. It sucked. I don't want to say that these were good moves by by Billy Epler. They were. David Robertson is an expiring contract. If you really want him next year to be the 8th inning guy, the bridge to Diaz, sign him in the offseason. There's no problem with that. So if the Mets do what the Yankees did and re-sign Chapman after they traded him, well, you get a top-rated prospect, 2 of them that a lot of people believe are really good, especially Vargas, and you bring him back. Well, you basically traded him away in a lost season and get your bullpen back to an 8th and 9th inning that you trust. And then every offseason, there's always arms available for the bullpen. It's just a matter of getting it, right? Raley, I don't know if the Mets are going to trade Raley unless you get something that you can't refuse back. Raley's going to be part of this team. So if you got a 7, 8, and 9 with Raley, Robertson, Diaz, it's okay. That's pretty good. And then with the 5th and 6th inning, you'll have guys that you can find a long man for, or a guy that's middle of the road that you can throw into a game that you might be up 3 runs or down 3 runs or down 4 runs, up 4 runs, and you can throw them in, right? That's what you have to look at. And for people that are talking about that, and it was so funny to me, people like, the Mets only got 1 top prospect back for Scherzer. If I would have told you 2 weeks ago what the Mets can get back for Scherzer, you would have said a bag of balls. And if you don't believe you said that, and don't think you said that, stop lying to yourselves. Because what the Mets got back for Scherzer was shocking. Now, there was talk about Brock Porter, one of the top pitchers in the Rangers system. There was also Thomas Sages, who was also talked about. All 3 of them were pulled from their lineup and their from the game prior to this trade going down with Scherzer. The reason why all 3 of those guys were taken out, now the speculation was, the Mets are going to get multiple guys. I never thought that. I thought that at first, but if you read up on what was going on, the Mets were talking about one of those 3 guys. That's why they were all taken out, to prevent injury. That was the point of that. So when we look at it and when we understand the fact that the Mets got the 44th ranked prospect in MLB's top 100 and automatically is your number 2 prospect in the Mets system, and every trade they made, the David Robertson trade and the Scherzer trade, 2 guys now in Vargas and Acuna are now in your top 6. That's a big deal, guys. That is a huge deal. For a team, remember, how much just last year, the New York Mets were 17th and 18th in overall rankings for farm systems. Right now, before they traded anybody, they were 12th. With these 2 trades, they're going to be in the top 10. And who knows what else they do. So in a year, in the offseason, the Mets were ranked 17th, 18th, depending on which ranking you were looking at. By the draft, and some guys like Tidwell and Vazel pitching extremely well and helping the farm system and moving up in the system, got them all the way to 12th rankings in Major League Baseball's MLB ranking system for the farm system. They're going to be top 10 once it comes out again after the trade deadline, just based on Vargas and Acuna alone. And this is a guy that how many people, and guys, if you've been with me for a while, how many people in this chat, and some of you might have said it, kept on saying, Scherzer's washed. He's done. You just got a prospect that's number 2 in your system now for Scherzer. And, by the way, the Mets actually saved $22 million by trading him, where they would have still added $55 million if they kept him for next year. They gave the Rangers $30+ million to pay the rest of this season and about a little more than half for next season, a little less than half for next season. And they saved $22 million on that. So, and exactly. And with Yamamoto, who is one of the phenom Japanese pitchers, there's a lot of indications that the Mets are all in on this guy. So that also takes only money. And with Senga already here, you see what that means, right? That shows you that the Mets know what they're doing when it comes to international guys now. And Billy Epler has this way of talking to these Japanese players to get them in. And Yamamoto is a guy that if money's an issue, the Mets are going to pay the most if they really think this kid's going to be good. And I know Christian's talking about Ohtani's not coming here. I don't necessarily believe that. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that the New York Mets, right, with Shohei Ohtani, nobody knows what he really believes about the East Coast at this point. Nobody remember talking about it when he first came from Japan. But there's two things that you have to think about here. Billy Epler, who nobody likes, even though Billy Epler has made 2 really good trades. Now, I would have waited on David Robinson. That's one thing I got to say. I think the deal could have been there today or tomorrow for David Robinson. But Marco Vargas, according to everybody, is highly regarded. And I do believe that the Mets actually liked Vargas coming out of when he was ready to sign with the international situation with the Marlins. I think the Mets actually really liked him, and the Marlins were able to get him. So that's something that if you backtrack it a couple of years ago, the Mets are actually in on Vargas, while the Marlins actually had a little bit more signing bonus money, international signing bonus money to get him, and that's why he went to the Marlins. That's where it messes up. That's where it happened. Waited to trade at Escobar. I don't see the point in that because everybody was bitching and moaning that Escobar was playing too much and Beatty needed to start every day. That was the reason why. Escobar was doing nothing with this team, and you got back a couple of prospects. It's not the end of the world with Escobar. Joel, I think Beatty needs to get it together because Beatty has been very disappointing, and he's been playing ever since they traded Escobar, and he's been playing a lot. So Beatty, I keep on saying it. This guy, now I don't care about the average when it comes to in AAA, right? But this was a guy, every day on Twitter, you see him hitting the ball over the wall, driving runs in, basically putting bat on the ball, basically just knocking balls in the gap, hitting balls all over the wall. He's not doing that. He's late on fastballs. He's got a very long swing, and I don't like him defensively. He's not very good defensively. If you don't believe that, and I guess the Mets were right on that point as well, just like with Vientos, right? Beatty scares me when he gets the ball. Beatty scares me defensively. And if you don't think that that's a problem, how many games the Mets lost this year because of defense? So if you don't care about defense, remember, there was people saying, oh, Mauricio, bring him up. Look, we got to get his bat in the lineup. Oh, bring up Beatty. You got to bring him up. Look at his bat. Who cares about his defense? Yeah? That shit matters. I'm sorry, guys. Defense matters. The Mets have lost a ton of games this year because of their defense. A lot of games. You can go back to the Boston game. You can go back to the Boston series. You can go back to the Pittsburgh series. You can go back to the Yankee series at Citi Field or at Yankee Stadium. You can go to many games this year where defense has coached the games, right? I think Brett Beatty is going to figure it out offensively, but you can't have a butcher at third base, guys. You can't. You can't have him play 2 good games defensively and then the third game look like he never played third base in his life. Vientos is on another level defensively, terrible. So, can Beatty turn it around? Absolutely. I'm not saying give up on Beatty, all right? But what the Mets were saying, and they were completely wrong about Alvarez, and that's on them, but they weren't wrong about Beatty, and they weren't wrong about Vientos. And when they talk about getting more at-bats at AAA, that's what they mean, guys, because Beatty does not look – what is he batting, 235, 7 home runs? I mean, come on, guys. Escobar could do that. Like, honestly, Escobar could do that. And Escobar, like, Beatty's been up since when? May? And I know he wasn't playing, he was playing back platooning with Escobar, but Escobar, at least at the end of the year, had 20 home runs. Well, and let me go back to Ohtani real quick since I got off that situation when I saw the Beatty comments. Listen, I do believe, remember, the Angels took Ohtani off the trade market on, what was it, right before the National Series. And I think that raised eyebrows in the Mets front office. Why do I say that? Because I think the Mets were still contemplating if they were going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline. That's just me. Before the National Series. Once Ohtani came off the trade market, that made Mets guys like Robinson and Scherzer and Verlander more valuable now to the Mets, because that means there's less better pitchers on the trade market right now for teams that were looking to trade for Ohtani. The Dodgers, teams like that. The Mariners, teams like that. The Yankees, not even though I don't think the Yankees are going to do anything, but it makes the Mets players more valuable and more of a commodity at the trade market, not at the trade deadline. Doesn't mean they have to trade them. It just, and then on top of that, with Ohtani to the Mets, remember Steve Cohen went to Japan during the WBC, right? You don't think he had a conversation with his agent? You don't think he had a side conversation with Ohtani just to have a conversation? You don't think he went to go look at Yamamoto? Because it wasn't just Steve Cohen that went to the WBC. He had scouts with him. He had front office people with him. You don't think they scouted Yamamoto? Of course they did. And I do think that we don't want to believe it because Met fans always get burned by stuff like this. But I truly believe that Steve Cohen and Billy Epler have an idea that Shohei Ohtani does not mind coming to the East Coast. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to become a Met. I think he doesn't. I don't think everybody believes that he's just completely out on East Coast teams. I don't believe that one bit at all. And as much as people want to kill Billy Epler, this guy has been a master in getting guys from Japan, right? He persuaded Senga when everybody thought that the Mets were going to be out on Senga. If you look at the last 2 or 3 days before the Mets signed Senga, there was teams like the Yankees, the Dodgers. There was I think about 4 or 5 teams, and there was some word that, the Mets are not going to be getting Senga, and then all of a sudden they did. Billy Epler has shown that he has really good negotiating tactics when it comes to the Japanese players. And he was the only one, and Shohei Ohtani spoke about this, he was the only GM or front office member of another team that went to Japan, met with Ohtani's family, and sat down and spoke with him. That goes a long way for these Japanese players. Respect goes a long way. They still believe that. explosive. Joel, yes, he is hitting the market. The Angels are not trading him. And we all know the Angels are not signing him. I mean, come on, guys. Pay attention. He's off the trade market. He's going to be a free agent. That's it. So he's on the market. He's not staying with the Angels. Come on, guys. Well, yeah, he's staying with the Angels now. But say if the Angels make the playoffs and, they're one and done. They get knocked out in the wild card round. Well, okay. If he wants to stay on the West Coast, then the media market in Los Angeles is not as crazy as New York. But let's be honest. You go into LA, there's going to be a big media market with that. All right. He said recently, but I just think that he does not that type of player to badmouth the Angels. So he's going to be a good teammate. He's going to be a good player, a good organizational guy. He's not going to say that. Say, oh, well, I don't care where I go. Doesn't matter where I go. But you know what? It shows you that the Angels are trying. I believe the Angels are trying to make the playoffs and going all out at this point because they believe Ohtani's gone. I truly believe that. And they're trying everything they can to make the playoffs and possibly go on a run to try to keep Ohtani. If the Angels really believe that there's a really good chance that Ohtani's going to stay with the Angels, why would they try? Why would they trade prospects away? Right? They could have done that a couple of years ago. They could have made better signings. They could have made better deadline deals. Yeah, I agree, Christian. I believe Seattle, San Diego, the Dodgers, Angels are front runners. But the Dodgers were also front runners for Scherzer. Do you remember Max Scherzer came out prior to the offseason and says he didn't want to come to the Mets? He doesn't want to go to the East Coast. Remember, he said that. He wanted to stay on the West Coast. And that's when the Dodgers and the Giants and the Padres were talks about the Giants. And then what happened? All of a sudden, the Dodgers, who were willing to give a 2-year deal with similar money to the Mets, all of a sudden, Cohen gets in a room with Scherzer and talks to Scherzer and says, what is it going to take for you to come to the Mets? Scherzer probably said a little bit more money and an extra year with an option. Cohen said, I got it. What if Ohtani goes to the Mets, sits down with them out of respect of the teams because he's a free agent and says, listen, Steve, I really want to stay on the West Coast, but there is things that you could do and your team can do to make me really think about coming to the East Coast. The Dodgers just offered me 10 years, $500 million. Can you give more? What if nobody else is giving more than 10 years and Cohen's like, I'll give you 11 years, $575 million. You think Ohtani's going to take a year less and $175 million less because he wants to stay on the East Coast? I'm sorry, guys. There's not many players that are going to take that much less money and stay with a team or change teams to take $100 million less. That's dangerous, guys. Yeah, Michael, it was the money. But let's not act like money doesn't matter, even with Japanese players. Senga took the most money from the Mets when other teams were trying to get him. All right? Can we act like Ohtani is a guy that's going to take $500 million and call it a day because he wants to stay on the West Coast? If somebody offers him $75, $100, $120 million more, you don't think he's not going to go there? Come on, guys. I mean, these guys are human. Come on. Yeah, and this is what Steve Cohen has to do, right? And Yamamoto is probably a very big target for the Mets. And if that's the case, well, Yamamoto, Ohtani, they're friends. They know each other. Same thing with Senga. They know each other, right? Don't think that has something to do with it. I'm telling you, don't count out Billy Epler with Shohei Ohtani, right? Nobody thought the Angels had a chance in hell of getting Shohei Ohtani. They came out of nowhere to land Shohei Ohtani. It was, Google it, right? It was talk about the Dodgers. It was talked about Seattle a lot, right? Even though the Yankees were heavily trying to get him, we knew that he declined a meeting with them because it was the East Coast. Yeah, exactly, LRF. You think Yoshida wanted to go to the Red Sox, who were a team that were probably in rebuild mode for the most part and weren't really contenders, even though they're playing well this year? No. Yoshida was looking at teams, big market teams, that were looking to win right now, right? But the Red Sox overbid everybody by a large margin, and Yoshida was like, damn, I'm not going to take that much less money to go to a team that, has a chance of winning. When he went to the Red Sox, we're a team that were basically considered the last place team in the AL East. And he went right there. He went to that team, to the Red Sox, because the Red Sox overpaid by a large margin compared to what other teams are going to give. More years, more money. Don't think for a second. Everybody believes that Cohen's going to give the biggest offer to Shohei Ohtani. How big is the question? I don't think the Dodgers are going to go more than $500 million. Maybe they'll go the 525 for 10 years. I don't think they're going to go more than that. You're going to tell me if Cohen says he was going to give 10 years to Correa. Come on, guys. If Cohen says, you know what, we'll give you 11 years, $600 million with all these incentives, all these bonuses, everything that you want, you'll get. And nobody else comes close to that offer. You really believe Shohei Ohtani loves the West Coast so much that he's going to take $100 million less plus an extra year? I don't believe that, guys, one bit. Yeah, Meach, that's fine. But Ohtani's been pitching in a 5-man rotation for the last couple of years, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Senga, who's finally starting to figure out that 5-man rotation, who's been probably the best Mets pitcher other than Verlander, and has an ERA under 2.5 over the last 2 months, month and a half. You have to look at it in certain perspective, guys. I don't think the Mets are the favorite, but the Mets were in favorites to sign a lot of guys, and they did, right? Scherzer was an afterthought. No, Andy Martino, Joel Sherman, Ken Rosendahl laughed at the possibility that the Mets were going to get Max Scherzer. And the reason why I say that, because Max Scherzer is very vocal, very union-oriented, and was very vocal about not wanting to come to the Mets in general and the East Coast. He wanted to stay on the West Coast ever since playing for the Dodgers. He wanted to stay on the West Coast. Committee, listen, if you give a 10-year deal to Ohtani and he gives you 5 years of being a top-of-the-line starting pitcher and a top-of-the-line hitter, both of them at the same time, and you get 5 years out of the 10 as Bolt at the top line player, fine. I'll take it. Because the other 5, you're gonna have one of the best hitters in the game. And maybe he won't be the best pitcher in your rotation, but can he be a number 3 or a number 4 at best? You're not these are what all these long-term deals. You're not paying for years 6, 7, 8, and 9. You're paying for the first 5 years of that contract to try to win with that player. When Steve Cohen wanted somebody, he went out and got him. Now, the whole Correa situation ended up being correct because of the medicals, but there is nothing to say that Shohei Ohtani is going to be done. Now, anybody can break a leg. Anybody can tear an ACL. Anybody can have Tommy John. So you're going to not get a player because of risk of injury? Well, then sell your team and get rid of the Mets and not have an organization. You don't do that. You have to go for it when you can. And the Mets' biggest bullet, the Mets' biggest resource is money now. And the best player on the market is going to be a free agent. Now, it might not mean nothing. He might want to stay on the West Coast. But that does not mean the Mets are not going to do everything they can to get him. And every time Cohen goes into a room with a free agent, they either agree to a deal and sign it or agree to a deal and have to work out kinks like the Correa situation. But Correa was on board. The Mets were the one that decided after the medicals to not go on with that contract. And that is the whole point. Yeah, but again, Pete, when it comes to it, and I'm glad you're at work, hopefully you're still listening, too many people are focused on what position these prospects play, specifically shortstop in general or middle infielders. Middle infielders are the most versatile players on your in your farm system. They can move any position, right? Acuna has played a lot of center field as well. So he is an outfielder. He's not just a middle infielder. So he's a guy that if he rakes over this next couple of months in Double-A in the Mets system, by the way, he went 3 for 4 in his first chance in the Mets organization. If he continues to climb the ladder, gets an invite to spring training next year, and you put him in left field and he wins the job, well, problem solved for left field, no? Yeah, Meech, I don't think they might go 6-man, but I don't necessarily think they don't have to protect anybody. They protected Senga because this was his first year. Ohtani has been pitching in a 5-man rotation for the last couple of years. This is not new to him. Now, if you want to, if you got a off day, you want to give him an extra day here and there, they'll do that. But you can't be afraid of injury. Then why sign anybody? Why waste your time for trading for anybody? Don't do it. That is where you have to look at if you're the New York Mets, right? So let's get back into the topics at hand. Verlander update. We heard over the last couple of days the Dodgers and Astros are really heavily trying to get Verlander from the Mets. And again, I don't think the Mets are going to trade Verlander. I want to make that clear. That is my thoughts, my opinion. I don't think they want to trade him. But you'll be a fool if one of those teams, it doesn't matter who it is, Dodgers, Astros, who knows, if the Baltimore Orioles say, listen, the hell with it. We need an ace. Because there's teams like the Reds, the Orioles, who don't really have really good pitching at all. They're winning based on their offense. Right? What if a team like the Dodgers or the Astros or any team, whatever team's looking for a top-line starting pitcher, because no matter what you decide, if the Mets already decided they're trading Verlander and they're just getting the best deal possible, they're going to get a lot more back than what they got for Scherzer. And what I mean by a lot back, 2 top 10 prospects or possibly 3 top 20 prospects. And before you go, you can't give top 20 prospects. Those top 20 prospects, if you get 3 of them or 2 of them, will probably be in the Mets top 10 as soon as that deal is done. So look at it this way. If somebody blows you away with an offer, if the Dodgers feel like with all their injuries in the rotation, they want Verlander and nothing's going to stop them. Okay, let's pull it up, guys. Let's pull up Dodgers top prospects. Okay, LA. Yeah, no problem. We'll talk about it. Let's have a conversation. All right, let's see. Give me a second. Let me just get the full list. All right, here you go. Wow. You got a lot of pitching prospects here, don't you? A lot of these guys are projected to be up, some of them this year, some of them next year. You know what? I really like Gavin Stone. Gavin Stone, pitching in AAA right now, right? Not pitching well, right? It looks like he just came up to AAA, not pitching well. But his AA stats, let me see. Pitching to a 1.6 ERA in AA, right? Was pitching to a 1.16 ERA in games started, right? And this was in 2022. Having a rough year this year, but having under a 2 ERA in double A and all the way down, all the way to single A, right? Okay, well, you don't want him? All right. Emmett Sheehan. Whoa, look at this. Double A, 2.83 ERA. Double A, struggled, 4.5 ERA. But triple A, 1.86 ERA in 12 starts. Now, he's more of a reliever, but you're looking at it this way, right? All right, fine. Nick Frasso, right-handed pitcher. Very good in double A with an under 2 ERA. Struggling in triple A. Struggling in double A right now with a 4 ERA. All right. We can look at it, right? Ryan Rivera. He's in double A right now with an under 2.96 ERA in 17 games started. Looking very good, right-hander. There's options here, guys. Left-hander, Maddox Burns. 3.19 ERA in single A and upper high double A. Single A, excuse me. There's guys that are available. No, Butterscotch, listen. It's not that I think they're going to be good. We don't know that. Nobody knows that. But you can't be afraid of making a move, right? All we've talked about over and over and over and over again. The Mets have to get younger. The Mets have to build a farm system. Well, how do you think you do that? You can't keep on signing older guys or trading your prospects for older guys to go for it. And this is what some people wanted to do this year, right? There's a reason why the Mets gave 3-year deals, 2-year deals to Verlander, Scherzer, Canna, Pham, Escobar, Canna. Marte was the only 4-year deal. There's a reason why. The Mets went for it over the last 2 years. It failed. They tried, too bad. All you lost was money, right? There's guys in the Mets farm system. And again, guys, in the offseason, the Mets were 17, 18 ranked in farm systems in baseball. They're now 12, and that was prior to the trades the Mets made. Now they're probably already in the top 10 with the Vargas Acuna trades. No, but that's not true because Tidwell just got promoted to Double A. He's been one of the best pitchers in the minor leagues. Vassell just got moved up to Triple A, a guy that the Mets project to be in the rotation next year, right? For all we know, he could be a solid number 3, right? Tidwell can move up drastically and pitch great the rest of the year in Double A. He might get an invite to spring training. What if he's lights out in spring training and the Mets say, hey, let's put him in the rotation? You have to look at scenarios, right? There's people available as well, right? If you think Senga can make that next step as your ace, he's been pitching like one. All right, go with it. Not the end of the world. If you want a guy like Urias or Snell or Giolito, a couple of those guys to knock in your 2 or 3 guys, could we look at the playoff teams right now? Let's look at the playoff teams. Look at the playoff teams right now, right? Atlanta. Do we really believe that the pitching staff was the big reason why this team has been one of the best teams in baseball all year? No, it's been their offense. They've been struggling to keep guys healthy in their rotation. All year, they have had trouble with their rotation. How do they continue to be good and bring guys in their rotation? By having prospects ready to go and bringing these guys up to fill their spots until the guys get healthy, right? Okay. Miami. Alcantara has been a shell of himself this year. He's been pitching better as of late, but all season, the Marlins have been shockingly good without Alcantara, without their ace. Other guys have been pitching well, but their lineup, if you look at their lineup, has been very good all season. Their bullpen has been very good all season. That's why they're winning, all right? The Phillies. Playoff team right now, right? They're tied for a wild card spot. Besides Zach Wheeler, who's not really having a great season, who's been pitching well for the Red Sox on the Phillies in their rotation? It's been their lineup. It's been their bullpen. That's what's gotten them to around the playoff spot, right? Okay, let's go on. Cincinnati. Can you name me one guy in their rotation? Yeah, I'm waiting. You can't. Why? Because their offense have been extremely good for 2 weeks. Let's not act like they've been very good for a month now. They've been good. They had a good 2-week stretch. You want to go back? Oh, wow, look at that. Cincinnati Reds. 7-3 in the last 10. Very good. Before that, they were 2-8. Milwaukee, it's probably the team you could say probably has a better rotation than every team that I just mentioned. They're a wild card team at this point, trying to fight for a division with the Reds. Corbin Burns, who can't wait to get out of Milwaukee, right? The Brewers probably have the best rotation out of the teams I just mentioned. Why aren't they better than those teams? Why aren't they running away with the Central? Oh, right. Because they're not very good. So rotations aren't everything, guys. You need a solid rotation. The reason why the Mets were so good last year was because they had a solid rotation, right? Chris Bassett, solid. Walker, solid. Scherzer, hurt. When he pitched, he was very good. DeGrom wasn't there the whole half of the season. When DeGrom came back, you can arguably say that the Mets had a worse record when DeGrom came back. So it was the McGills, the Petersons, Bassett, Walker, even Carrasco last year. Were any of those guys you consider an ace? No. The Mets were good last year because they got solid pitching. Now, you always need an ace. I believe you need that one guy. There's no reason why Senga can't be that guy next year. He's getting better and better with every start. Why can't you get 3 or 4 solid pitchers that can consistently give you 6 innings every start, keep the team in the game? You know, everybody will have a bad start, of course. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right? Here, we're going to keep going. Chicago Cubs. Stroman, do you consider him an ace? Probably not. He's a solid number. You could say he's a borderline number 2. Definitely a really good, solid number 3. What else do the Cubs have besides Stroman? How are they winning? Have you seen how they've been winning? Their offense. All right? There you go. Once again. Right? Pittsburgh. They're gone. St. Louis. Right? St. Louis. Everybody thought they should win this division easily. Last place. The Dodgers. Who is in a rotation? Kershaw has basically been their best pitcher. Dodgers don't have a great rotation. San Francisco. Do they have a great rotation? No. Arizona. Besides Gallen, their rotation is not that good. So I just named you all the teams in the National League. Not one of them have what considered to be a really good rotation. If you looked on paper, the Mets have one of the best rotations in baseball, at least in the top. Well, it didn't work out that well, right? Sometimes you have to focus a little bit more on the lineup and focus more on that and get solid arms. The Rangers, who are they throwing out there? Nathan Eovaldi, Andrew Heaney, guys that most people thought can be. You know, Nathan Eovaldi, probably a really solid number 3. At times, shows he can be a number 2. He's pitching out of his mind this year. Andrew Heaney is a good pitcher, probably a 4, pitching extremely well this year. But the Rangers still went out and got Max Scherzer. Still went out and got Jordan Montgomery. Scherzer, who has a 4 ERA, is probably at 3 at best now, and Montgomery's a 4 at best. So what do? Do I want Blake Snell? Not for what people want him to be. Now, if you're going to tell me, get Blake Snell, get Urias to solidify the middle of this rotation, I'm all on board with that. Right? Because it's shown over the last couple of years that the lineup, I'd rather have everyday players that can do the job 5-6 days out of the week than a pitcher that can give me a great start once a week. That's the way, we look at it in certain ways, right? I just ran off all the teams that are in a playoff spot right now or on the borderline of a playoffs. I just gave you teams. What rotation are you scared of? You're probably more scared of a lineup than you are a rotation. Yeah, Butterscotch, you need hitting and pitching, but the Phillies made the playoffs thoroughly because of their lineup going insane. Right? You need both, But let's not act like the lineup hasn't been more important over the last couple of years than the pitching rotation. The Mets have tried to have dominant starting pitching, and it's failed them every single time. Right? Let's not act like the rotation has been winning championships here for teams. Right? Other than Valdez for the Astros, nobody really pitched well for the Astros. Verlander wasn't very good. He was all right in the World Series. Wasn't very good. Valdez was very good. Other than that, how many times they were taking their pitches out in the 5th inning, using the rest of their bullpen? The use of the bullpen was pretty damn good. Yeah, exactly, Christian. Like, it's not very good. And those are teams, the Diamondbacks are hanging on to a playoff spot, trying to win a division. The Dodgers are winning the division. The Reds are in the division right now. I mean, come on. That's not true, but that's not true at all. 11-9, that's a joke. It's not true at all. Right? The Dodgers can win close games. The Dodgers can win high-scoring games. Right? The same thing with the Reds. The same thing with the Brewers. The same thing with the Dodgers. Same thing with the Phillies. Same thing with the Braves. Let's be honest, guys. Have this Braves rotation been very good? They've been good, but nothing to what they were expected to be. They've been beating people with their offense. Christian, thank you. I was just about to bring up the Padres. The Padres have been one of the best pitching staffs, rotation-wise, in baseball. They're on the verge of not making the playoffs again. They're right where they're a game and a half better than the Mets. And the Mets are selling people off. So it's not all about pitching. Now, you need a combination of both, absolutely. But the Mets rotation last year wasn't great. They were solid all around. Remember, that was without DeGrom for a half a season. That was without Scherzer for 6 weeks. Chris Bassett is not an ace. But you know what he did? He went out there and gave you a guaranteed 6 innings. Most of the time, 7 innings. Solid start. So Walker, same thing. Gave you 5 or 6 innings. Solid start. Carrasco last year was giving you solid starts. McGill and Peterson stepped up. Gave you solid starts. If I would have told you DeGrom was going to miss a half a season and Scherzer was going to miss 6 weeks of the season because of injury prior to last year, you would have been like, the Mets are in trouble. Right? And there you go. Joey Lucchesi has just been depth piece in a, you might see him at some point this year. And Jose Buto, I think, is struggling. Been pitching well in the minors, but I don't know if the Mets see him as anything yet. But Butterscotch, you can't predict that. Every Major League Baseball team has an overworked bullpen. Every one of them. Every one of them. The Mets bullpen was spent last year. Why were they so good? At the end of the year, Diaz was the only one that was actually mowing people down. The Mets bullpen was falling apart at the round. Every bullpen in Major League Baseball is overused. Every bullpen. I just gave you the playoff teams. Every one of them has the same amount of very similar innings for their bullpen. Every one of them. So let's not act like if going into the year, everybody thought the Mets were going to be a very good rotation. Very good. They're a shell. Why is that? And that's with Verlander and Scherzer and Verlander and Senga being probably top 10 in pitching over the last 10 starts. And by the way, Josh, I'm going to tell you this right now. Get ready for a big start later in the stretch when it comes to Bassett. Just so you know. Yeah, the starters were better last year, but look who you're talking about. Solid pitchers. Nobody better than number 3. Nobody. And then them same starters who everybody wanted back. Chris Bassett told you before the 3rd game of the playoff series, said, it's very hard pitching in New York. The pressure gets to me. So mentally, he checked out of that game. Biggest 2 games of the year against the Braves and the Padres. Bassett was a no-show. Probably your most solid pitcher all year gave you nothing in the 2 biggest starts of the year. Same thing to Scherzer. Come on, guys. Well, Josh, I tell you right now, Bassett might pitch well now. I'm telling you right now. That guy scares the hell out of me in big games. Easy. I mean, he's not going to start for us. He's going to be in the bullpen. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, I haven't looked at Seth Lugo's numbers as a starter. I'll look at it right now for you. Let me just check it out really quick. I know he had a decent season, but I mean, nothing to write home about. Like, let me see. Just give me a second. All right, so Seth Lugo as a starter is 4-5 with a 3.62 ERA. Okay, that's probably better. It's better than Scherzer, right? Not better than Senga, not better than Verlander, better than everybody else the Mets have, right? Let's just look. Started 15 games. He's given up 11 home runs in how many innings? 82. 16 walks, not bad. He has average. Let me check average. He's been pretty decent. But I mean, you're gonna throw him in a rotation? Okay, fine. Yeah, exactly, Dwayne. Senga, we're giving him $50 million. You know how many people said he was overpaid? You would have had to pay Bassett more, gave him more years, Walker more, give him more years and more money. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Lucchesi, he's been okay in the minors, but he'll probably be up sometime at this point. Jose Budo has been good, but I don't know if the Mets really believe in him. So we'll see. So, all right, guys. So, Ottavino and Raley, is it another 2 guys that have been talked about on the trade market? I think the Mets will be willing to give up Ottavino. I don't think they want to trade Raley. Now, again, if you can get a top 10 prospect back for Raley, because loading up, all these guys that are in the Mets farm system now that are arms, Tidwell, Vassell, Scott, Stewart, Hamill. Not all these guys are probably going to be starting pitchers. Some of these guys might end up being very solid relief pitchers as well before everybody goes crazy about arms. Okay? Oh God, no! Please, Luis Severino. He's a punk. That guy is please. Rob, let's hit a plan for Mauricio now. I think he's gonna get called up after the deadline, in my opinion. I think that's gonna happen, but yeah, exactly, Josh. Alek Manoah, who was the ace of the stand for the Blue Jays last year, he went all the way back to rookie ball. Again, solid pitching is more important than having 2 co-aces because it clearly doesn't work, right? How are the Yankees doing right now with their co-aces with Cole and Rodon, who finally came back? Yeah, Billy, I agree. Yamamoto's probably going to be a Met because he's probably going to get the most money from the Mets. So right there, and again, you might have to worry about seeing what's going on with the 6-man rotation, giving them starts. But all indications are this kid's ready to go. So again, with Ottavino and Raley, I think Ottavino could be a guy that could be traded. And if you get, a mid-level prospect for Ottavino, you're building up your farm system, guys. That's important, especially if you're thinking about if the Mets decide that they might want to make a trade in the offseason. You got organizational depth, what the Mets did not have this offseason, right? Brooks Raley, I think, is probably most likely not going to get traded, but if somebody blows you away, you have to think about it. McNeil, there was some talk because of the whole the Acuna trade, and looking like he's a guy that could be a possibility on this roster next year who could play second base. So there was thoughts about, hey, maybe the Mets are putting McNeil on the trade block here. You know, got his extension, is not a rental. Would somebody bite on McNeil? I don't think the Mets want to trade McNeil, but you got to listen. I don't know if the Mets are going to trade Jeff McNeil, but if somebody's stupid enough to give me 2 top 20 prospects for Jeff McNeil, you have to think about that. Yeah, but Butterscott, I don't think expectation was the problem this year. They just underperformed this year. That's it. You know, I mean, the Dodgers have high expectations. The Yankees have high expectations. The Astros have high expectations. The Phillies, the Braves, it doesn't hurt them. I mean, come on, guys. And look, here's the stat on MLB Network. Max Scherzer here, they're gonna try to tell you that he wasn't bad. 2.13 ERA prior to the final regular season start last year. Oh, let's talk about that. But let's not talk about every freaking inning after that. Oh, look, now they're showing, Atlanta, 5 2/3, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 home runs earned allowed. That was the Atlanta game. Oh, hey, look, the playoff game. 4 2/3, 7 earned runs, 4 home runs against the Padres. Oh, yes. But let's not trade him because let's keep Scherzer for what? I can have McGill throw a 4 ERA. Whoa. See, Chris. Really fan for Pete Crow Armstrong? I'll drive him to Chicago. Drive him right now. Because Crow Armstrong will probably be in the Mets outfield next year. Right away. I mean, who said that? Did you see who said that? And Sean, I think you're watching. Yeah, I mean, if the Dodgers come to you with, and going back because Sean just texted me, he's had a problem with his email with the whole YouTube thing, right? He said, "How about Gavin Stone and Andy Page, 2 top 10 prospect arms in the Dodgers system for Verlander?" You really have to think about that. All right, so Chris is going to send me that tweet right now. And, yeah. Jordan, yeah, it's ridiculous. But, again, the Cubs are not selling now. They're buyers. You might get somebody stupid enough, just like the Rangers are stupid of giving Acuna for Scherzer. That's a stupid trade, no? But they're going for it, which no fan should be mad at. If the Cubs really think they got a chance for either the Central or a playoff spot, if they're stupid enough to give us back PCA for Rayleigh and Pham, good riddance. Thank you. We'll take that back. So I'm just trying to look at something, guys. Hold on. I never kill a team for going for it. No, Rayleigh's been better than Scherzer. Victor, no. I don't think so. Now, again, Cleveland's a team that they traded Rosario, which was weird. Yeah, I agree with you. But Acuna was a number 3 prospect in the Rangers system, and they traded him for a washed-up Scherzer who has a 4 ERA, who showed you over the last year and a half can't pitch in a big game. Yeah, that would be a whole time circus, right? All right, guys. So, just so you know, guys, today, tonight at 8 p.m. is the Mets Roundtable podcast with the guy you see, CP New York Sports Pod, in the chat. Chris Nelson of Amish Country Mets fan and Hayden Mets Talk with Hayden are all going to be on the Roundtable podcast, going over what I've talked about today more in depth and get more opinions on the channel and everybody else's as well. So where the Mets are right now are very much in a situation where they're in a great position, guys. Why? Especially with Verlander. If they don't like the offers they're getting for Verlander, they keep him. You roll him out in the rotation next year with Sanger as your 1-2. That's pretty damn good. And all indications are Yamamoto's probably going to be a Met. It's good to see, right? And on top of that, if the Mets get wowed by an offer that they can't refuse for Verlander, all you're doing is building up your farm system more and probably getting some pitcher prospects in there with that too. Big deal, guys. And if you don't think that Tommy Pham can get you probably a top 30 prospect, top 25 prospect, look around baseball. Teams are willing to give a ton back for these players now. They're all on board. There's not a lot of sellers, guys. The Mets are in a pretty good situation. So we'll see. And we'll see, guys. And again, Roundtable Podcast, 8 p.m. tonight, 10 p.m. tonight, and you'll see this up in a little while, guys. 10 p.m. tonight is the start of my MLB Trade Deadline special, where I'm going to start at 10 p.m. I'm going to go a couple hours into the night, into early morning. Unfortunately, my boy Shay, my kitten, is getting fixed. So I got to send him to the vet early in the morning. So I'm going to hopefully have somebody on during that live stream while I do what I got to do with Shay. Come back on the live stream. And it's going to be 20 plus hours of live coverage for the trade deadline. It's going to be so many hours, so many opinions, so many thoughts, hopefully blockbuster trades. It's going to be crazy, guys. So trade deadline special here on the channel, 10 p.m. Going through the night. Maybe we'll get something crazy. Probably stay on until about 3 in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning. Come back. Now, if it doesn't work out that I can get people to fill in for me during that time, I'll turn it off and put it back on once I come back from the vet. It's going to be it's going to be 24 hours is going to be very hard. If I can get people to fill in for me during certain aspects of it, it can go that long. Now, I can't go into 6 p.m. until the hour of the deadline because I do have to pick Shay up at that time because I got to drop him off in the morning and pick him up in the afternoon. So, Chris, Nelson, Hayden, those guys says they're going to pop in and help me out during that stretch. I'll probably get those guys to fill in if they're willing to between 4 and 6 p.m., 3:33 or 6 p.m. to talk about the last few hours of the deadline. So you'll actually get that as well. So, all right, guys. So once again, tonight, 8 p.m., Mets Roundtable Podcast, me, Chris, Nelson, and Hayden. Going to talk about the deadline, talk about the Mets trade rumors, all the news going on over baseball over the next couple of hours. 10 p.m. is the MLB Trade Deadline special right here on the channel. So once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Mets Trade Deadline Preview. It's definitely a preview for later tonight into tomorrow. Everybody have a good night. Don't forget, tune in 8 p.m. tonight, guys, for the Roundtable Podcast. Have a great night. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. Let's see what's on board for the New York Mets and Verlander, Pham, Canna, and maybe more. I'll see you next time, guys. See you later tonight. Let's go Mets. Have a good night, guys. 8 p.m. tonight, Roundtable Podcast. See you guys later.
Coming down to meet the L.E.T.S. Mets of New York town, of New York town. Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your